Us.
Hi.
And you.
All that is we.
I think it's cosplay, spotlight, guest panel. So I guess we'll thank you guys for coming late Sunday. We really appreciate it. So let's introductions, I guess is always the best way to start. We're going to start there.
Yep. Let's go with Chrissy first.
Come on, Chrissy.
Oh, I didn't even have a mic.
Chrissy.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Lynn. I'm a Southern California special effects makeup artist, wig maker, body painter, costume person.
Doer of everything.
I've been cosplaying since 2010, and I've been attending conventions since 2004, starting with San Diego, when you can walk in on a Saturday and just buy a day badge.
What?
I remember this.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Cami. I am known as Cami Slice on all social medias. I've been cosplaying since 2016, so not that long. But I find that representation is really important, and so that's why I really continue to fight and secure that for the LGBT community, so that's why I'm here. So. And to see all you wonderful people.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I go by both Hannah Mae's Cosplay and Pixel Stitcher online, and I've been cosplaying for over 20 years. But
I see you.
Like the trailer.
yeah. I started cosplaying in Georgia, so I've moved around a bit, and it's been fun to just have cosplay be a unifying thing for finding friends and like-minded people across the United States and world, really. But yeah, so I'm just more of a hobbyist cosplayer, but I'm so delighted to be here among so many talented and incredible people.
She's pro.
She downplaying herself.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah,
real
yeah,
pro.
she's-
She being humble. She being humble.
Have you seen that kind of stuff?
Hello, I am Inazmi V. I've been cosplaying since 2007, going to conventions just as long. I'm very obsessed with Harley Quinn. It kind of shows in all of my work, but
Sorry, that's right.
I specialize in spandex because I'm a masochist.
Yeah.
The only way to do it.
And I just like villains and clowns, and I love, for me, part of the fun is the play part of cosplay, so I love to do a lot of the acting and just being a goofball. And I just love doing this stuff and getting to be part of the community across the places, across the country. I started in Texas, and I moved out to California about 6 or so years ago, and I've just been kind of floating through life since then.
Hi, my name is Ricky, but I go by Riddle. I've been cosplaying for over 20 years. My cosplay career can now go to college. Back in our day, we had to Sharpie dye wigs.
Yeah, we did.
And alcohol.
Yeah.
Diaper.
That's when it got fancy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that means you had money.
Remember Katie Blair?
Oh, I love
Oh,
Katie, but I love her dye
yeah,
kits.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Us old ladies.
The grannies.
talking about- Yeah, the
The
grannies.
It's a time before World War.
Yeah. We call it BW before World War. I'm sorry. I grew up in very rural Canada. I cosplayed before I knew what cosplay was, so there's a long-running joke that I thought I had invented cosplay, and my friends always make fun of me about that. I then moved to Atlanta in 2006 and just continued cosplay, continued working my craft, and when the movie industry came to Atlanta, I was able to transfer my cosplay skills to working in the film and television industry, but I still cosplay because I love it, and I use it as a way to keep my skills fresh and keep my skills up to date for when I do get work. So, and I also rehabilitate baby squirrels, and that is one of my true
That's like my favorite
loves.
thing about you. That and you
Not
love
my
Zelda.
eyes.
No, not your eyes. Your love for Zelda is also another
Yes.
favorite thing that I have.
I love many things.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Gunner. I've also been cosplaying 20 plus years, and yep, just chugging along over here. I work in.
Did you cosplay right out of the womb?
I did.
Ninja
Like my mom was like, "Why is my baby clothed? What is she wearing?"
It's a Naruto! I should have a Naruto headband!
Yeah. I was gonna say Record of Lotus. That was like
Oh my God.
that was my very first anime that I was obsessed.
Fan subs.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. If you don't know what Record of Lotus was, you're too young for me.
I gotta tell you something else.
Yes, I love hearing your stories, babe. But yeah, I've been cosplaying a billion years, and I do professional costume designing, wardrobe styling, costuming. I also manufacture silicone adhesive, and I also manufacture hair color, like bright hair colors and stuff like that. And yes, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
So, We really don't have a plan for this panel because we just found out about an hour ago we had to be here. So if you guys have any questions, it's always, okay, great, let's get this started. Yes.
You were saying that there's a way other than alcohol and pens to dye hair?
Yes.
How?
So there's alcohol ink. There's alcohol ink, and you can use that. Some people have also used the synthetic grit dyes. You can also use that. Personally, I'm a fan of the alcohol ink and just putting in, I think it's 70% that you're supposed to do. Mix that up, let it, and then I would do a dye bath. It depends on what you.
You guys run through an
You
airbrush.
just, yeah, you can run through an airbrush, you can, I'm so lazy, I dip it in and let it sit, take it out, let it dry, rinse it, do the whole 9 yards, and.
That is very important. I learned early on, so probably a lot of my stories will be like back in my day, here's all those mistakes I made. So the wigs, we were like, oh my gosh, we only have 3 colors of wigs because there's this site called Amphagori, which is the only place you could order wigs. At least I was in Canada, that was the only place. It took like 4 months to get here. So you dye them with Sharpie, and then you'd rinse them and do whatever you needed. But I didn't realize you should probably multiple rinse it. So I wore a costume, and just all the ink just transferred to the top of my costume. And I was like,
As you're describing this, I'm watching it happen. Just like, yeah.
Chrissy is like,
Chrissy's
the
amazing
hair
at
goddess.
wigs. Yes.
She would do all that dyes.
It's like
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So I guess like a lot of panels we do, let's continue on, is there's like 5 common questions. So we'll start with, what is your favorite costume you've done?
I would definitely say probably my Princess Zelda Twilight Princess costume. And then I'd have to say, give it a shout out because it is one of my favorite costumes. Building it as well is my Witchblade. Because I'd say that kind of put me on the map in terms of going to cons and whatnot. Because even when I was in Princess Zelda, like I would be swarmed, but Witchblade, I literally, like Comic-Con gave me security to walk around. I'm not kidding. They really did. That stroked my ego like hardcore. Can't complain.
Probably for me, I would have to say, I always say it's whatever I'm currently working on, but I do have a soft spot for my Snow White, because kids really love it, and my Rocketeer.
For me, I'd have to say, well, Harley Quinn. I did a Halloween Harley that was designed by artist Abe Lopez, and I have a big pumpkin pants situation going on I have full of candy, and it's just so much fun. I learned a lot of new techniques for it, and it was just kind of like a level up for me. So when I learned like layer fabrics, and also just having candy pants was pretty rad. So definitely Halloween Harley. She's my love child.
So for me, I will say I have one that I always love to wear, and then I have like one that was my favorite build because the process of making it was just so rewarding. So for my favorite build, it would have to be my General Antiope from Wonder Woman. I did all leather and wet forming it and patterning it and riveting it. And even doing the props was just such an in-depth process, and I made it alongside my friend and her mom making their Diana and Hippolyta. So it was just like such the memories that are baked into making that costume really will always sit with me. And, but for my go-to, like, I'm just always happy to be Elastigirl or Mrs. Incredible or any form of this character. So that's me.
Yeah, I also have cosplays that I like to wear and play, but also cosplay. There's a big piece of characters that we have, right? So I too, Froppy is my favorite character. I am Super Saiyan Froppy today, in case you realize. But my favorite cosplay build, I'll use kind of that too, and there's definitely the soft spot, I've made a few versions of it, is my Charizard cosplay. And that's the one that everyone sees me out in the streets and they're like, hey, it's Charizard. I'm like, oh, you're talking to me. so I definitely have that soft spot there, but yeah, Froppy. Kira, adorable.
Well, thank you for all going before me to help me prepare for my answer. I appreciate that. Shockingly, it's not going to be one of my rogues or one of my Catwoman cosplays, even though it took me forever to figure out how I wanted to do my own, but like based off of every artist, to do Catwoman, which is like my number one. But when Sideshow Collectibles reached out to me and they're like, hey, can we give you, oh, I don't know, 3 months to bring one of our statues to life? And I'm just like, yes. Sideshow. And wear it at our booth for like 3 Comic-Cons in a row. I was like, yes, I will do that. And I love the Queen, and it's Gethsemane of the Queen of the Dead from their original IP, Court of the Dead collection. If you haven't seen any other premier format statues, they're epic and very detailed. And the first statue was like a skeleton bikini. And I had to get a full life cast done of my body and sculpt the entire thing on the form, once like on my cast, on my actual body, so it would fit my body. And then I used the Westmore silicone adhesive to stick it to said body. And I had only been using a sewing machine. I've hand sewed everything. I know, I'm a monster. I started sewing to a machine in 2016, so I was able to make all of the soft bits and all the draping for her. And then her giant crown, I had actually commissioned somebody else to do the wig because I had no time for that. And then airbrushed everything. I had to cover up my tattoos because I have a handful of them, and then put her tattoos on. And having to do that for 3 years in a row, I actually ended up just getting her real tattoos on my body. So that's what my back piece is, the Queen's tattoos, because I was like, I don't want to keep painting this on. And I like her. Yeah. And then I took some art at Abigail Larson. She's an amazing science fiction fantasy artist. She did some artwork for Sideshow, for Court of the Dead, with the Queen in this amazing gothic, horrible entrails gown situation. That's actually on display at my booth right now. And I made that, and that was like the first biggest like sewing project I think I ever did. I was very, very proud of it. I love using deer hide and like cowhide. I'm not a vegan, sorry. Like leather is one of my favorite things to sew. But yeah, that was like that's my majestic like masterpiece, and I love wearing her. And she's the only character that I can put on and actually really be her. For some weird reason.
You really do exemplify her, like when you're in costume, because like I fear you, but I also like, okay, my queen.
There's definitely a like, yes, whatever you need.
Yes.
It's incredible.
And if you guys have questions, just feel free to lift your hand at any point. Sweet, we got you.
So I was curious, I have a background in theater. Theater tends to do lots of research when it comes to a lot of period stuff. And like a lot of times when I feel like I look at a costume, you kind of like think in your head, this kind of reminds me of this, or it's reminiscent of this or this. Do you guys ever do any sort of like that sort of historical research or reference for
Oh
your
yeah.
costume?
Yeah, I mean,
Hell yeah.
a lot of times what I do is I'll look at the piece and then I'll try to figure out what they were looking at in real life that they simplified into that piece. And then also with a lot of stuff, it's when did this take place? What kind of materials would they have used? What would things look like? So I definitely do that, but it's not something everybody does.
Yeah, I did that for breaking down the Queen gown. I actually, and I don't recommend this, and you guys are going to feel my pain, but I made her hoop skirt. Like I made it. I hated every minute of it, but I made it. Wow. But I actually was looking at old historical period costuming and hoop skirts specifically, like cage skirts, in a book that was literally falling apart in my hands because it was so old. And because I was like, you know what, I could Amazon something, but I wanted to build this completely from head to toe, even like, not like how some people do like the bloomers or the stays or like the other stuff with the undergarments, but that was the one thing that I was very proud of. And it's trash, but I love it.
For like as far as research, like cosplayers we research the absolute heck out of a character, and then sometimes with the silhouette of a character, especially if there's a lot of sewing involved, it requires even doing kind of a little bit of a historical check with, say for my Princess Zelda, one of my Princess Zelda gowns has like a very traditional princess cut, A-line silhouette, and normally you just like, okay, I'm gonna go through like some wedding patterns or whatever, but like if you look even deeper, you go into the vintage, like say even from the 50s, there are better suited patterns that are actually in tune better with that character. With like it's amazing how much history can be applied to, not history, but much historical research can be applied to a costume that has nothing to do with it. So, yeah.
Well, and I was talking, I don't know if any of you went to the costume contest last night, but there was the male Ripley that was on the stage.
Yeah.
And he was awesome. And last night I was getting to talk to him outside of the show, and he was taking me through how he made all of his accessories, and that some of them are pieces that, like buckles, that haven't been made since like the 80s. And he had to like track them down and all these different things. And so it's crazy how even just something as small as like a buckle can be something that as cosplayers we obsess over, and we won't even move forward. And we were talking about that yesterday. You won't move forward until you find the right size buckles or
Yeah,
latches.
and that really happens when you're trying to replicate stuff from movie and television, because a lot of times they're like, here's a box of crab, and you're just like, okay, well, it's like that old sewing machine part. Or one of the things I was thinking about is the Rocketeer buckle. I can't remember exactly where it's from, but I remember looking on eBay, it was $450 for this buckle. And, yeah, that's it. And I was like, I wasn't making my version of the costume, and it's hidden underneath, it's what the backpack, and then the pocket covers it. So I was like, you gotta get away with that. But some people are so like Doctor Who cosplayers or Star Wars cosplayers. They're like, I need the exact thing.
It must be the replica, or else why am I doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember at one time there was no such thing as like screen accurate. Companies didn't make screen accurate printed fabrics and stuff that you can just buy that are from the TV show or the movie. And oftentimes, and I always bring this up when someone's obsessing about screen accurate, screen accurate, screen accurate, I'm like, you're probably going to make it 5,000 times better as a cosplayer than whatever they've made in a production.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of people don't take into account the film and television. They're doing the R&D for the cosplayer. So a lot of those costs come from like, okay, we've made it, well, can we move the seam line like half an inch over? And then they have to like, you know, it takes a village, much like I have a lot of friends who did Santa Fe Theater. And, you know, then you have to rebuild the whole thing up, and then, you know, it's like, okay, that looks good. And then, yeah, I've seen cosplayers, like, the thing I love about cosplayers is they're so innovative.
Yes.
And they're always thinking outside the box. And
Unconventional
sometimes when I work
materials.
with people in the film and television, they have amazing skill sets and they are meticulous. But this is the way we did it on the last show, and this is the way we're going to do it on this show. And there's a very finite amount of time, so you don't have time to really experiment unless the designer is giving you something that you're just like, I've never really done this before.
Yeah, it's interesting you asked about the history stuff. So just a real quick story. I grew up, both of my parents were local theater directors. My stepfather ran the whole drama department, so that was really cool. But I grew up in the drama department because they would always be at rehearsals every night. So me and my brother, we'd be running around the halls and whatever. But I really valued that lesson of don't let perfection be the enemy of good. And I learned that because I got to spend a lot of time seeing how these stage tech people would create something to look like something out of something else, right? Just to make it work from the stage, you know, 10-foot rule or whatever, right? So you have that. But I found that for me, and that's just my choice, I could get as perfected. I could have 50 cosplays on the shelf waiting for those little buttons and all that stuff, and I would, because I am that like that. So that's just my advice, is that when it comes to cosplay, kind of mirroring what everyone's saying, is yeah, sometimes good enough is good enough, right? It doesn't have to be perfect.
Unless you're competing.
Oh, yes, yeah.
You just always have to remind unless you're competing.
And I do have to say, for those of us who've been cosplaying a lot longer, we've really seen how cosplay has changed. And I'm going to say cosplay is for everybody. It doesn't matter if you buy it or you make it. But I do have to point out to the people who've really focused on their craftsmanship, that is what allowed cosplay to be taken seriously online and in the media, is because they really noticed, like, wow, they're really focusing on their details, or they're really going above and beyond. It's not just a dress-up game. So I think it's like, you can cosplay any way you want, but for me, I know for a lot of us who have transitioned from hobbyist to professional, it was really honing our craft and really filling our toolbox full of different skills, not just working with one material all the time. Like, okay, I've got to learn how to mold and cast and work with foam and hopefully work with some wood and be able to sew and just be able to communicate in all those sort of genres of cosplay. And it just helps you understand things. So I mean, it kind of depends. If you're in theater, probably pursuing it. So I think understanding like historical background on clothing is super important.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Yes.
You have a expectation of what you want the fans for your interaction? Do you want them to follow you on Instagram? Do you want Patreon? Do you want?
So,
what is your you want them to buy your photos? Is that the?
So, as somebody who's cosplayed for a very, very long time, like most of these lovely ladies here, I firmly believe that I really only want followers who can reflect me. Like, it's not that I just want anybody following me necessarily. I don't care if you're not a cosplayer or not, but if you have the ideals as me, like you need to be inclusive, you need to be accepting. Like I do have followers that just follow me because I'm hot, but I make it very known my stance with certain things, and if you don't if that doesn't if that makes you uncomfortable, that's okay, that's you. But
Free to
I'm not.
leave.
Yeah.
You're free to leave.
You're free to leave. You don't need to announce your exit. Thanks. Bye.
You're not a flight.
You're not an airport. Yeah, you're not announcing when you're leaving or when you're coming. But yeah, like when I do a costume, yeah, of course I want people to follow me. I want people to like what I do and whatnot. It's not the reason why I do it because I absolutely love doing it. Everything else that comes with it is really more of a perk. People who support us, especially appreciating who we are and what we do, and the confidence that we lift each other up with, because we are all about lifting each other up, is also vitally important. And so, yeah, I don't just cosplay to grab any fan. The fan that I want is someone who's at least a little bit like me, and respects my choices and who I am.
You're really trying to build community instead of just following.
Exactly. Followings are followings, but when you have fans and they feel more like family, that's even more important.
Yeah.
I love my fans. My fans are so damn respectful and wonderful people, and that makes me so happy because I used to have fans that were absolute just monsters. They just made the meanest jokes about other girls, comparing them to me, like putting me ahead of oh no, Jacqueline's so much hotter. I'm don't do that. That's not okay to do.
You can compliment someone without having to put someone else down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's lessened, but I do remember a time where there were a lot of websites. It's who's the better cosplayer?
Yeah.
This person, or oh, yours is so much better than this, and it's just
Or you're better because you do this and don't do that.
Yeah, I troll trolls, but if they do go after somebody else, I will just straight up.
Ricky and I are very known for troll hunting.
It's great. I mean, I would say as a mentor educator, because I do teach props to young aspiring cosplayers on the side. I do a lot of things. My side hustle is real, but I would say I like showing work in progress. I love talking to people at booths or in person and being able to say, my door is open, please come and ask me about airbrushing or prosthetic application or wig or hairstyling or anything like that, because I do like to make sure that I'm not hiding information or valuable techniques or skills that other people can use. I have nothing to hide. A lot of the information that I've gotten, I've crafted and kind of not come up with. People have come up with a lot of these techniques and skills long before my time. But I do following is nice, numbers are great, whatever, but engagement is super important in my personal opinion. I want to make sure I'm talking to everybody and getting back to them, and I'll go to their pages and I'll like their stuff too. I enjoy seeing their work, the progress for cosplay. But I also do love using my platform, and I'm very straightforward, like Jackie is too, with first you see my pages, here's my, all inclusive, everything else, LGBTQ, all that stuff. Then, you're one click away if you'd like to just leave. But yeah, I like to throw in work in progress stuff. I like the engagement helps encourage a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, and I like getting their opinions on things, what color should I do X, Y, Z? Yeah, and of course, constantly lifting each other up. That's the biggest thing. Is like we have to build each other up to keep going up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, people don't quite also realize too, I can just talk, people, you can hear me. You guys can hear me, right? Cool. One thing that like, I'd also like to touch on, like, you know, what Chrissy said, like with us lifting each other up, it's so important to lift your community up, because you don't realize it, you're lifting yourself up too. When you lift other people up, you really are lifting your own self up, because we shine better as a group.
One of my favorite quotes is, be the person in the room that mentions your name in a room full of opportunity, like if you're not there.
Well, and I think that there's, I think it's also one of those things where, especially because we've all been doing it for a decent chunk of time, like, you realize how important the community is. That we started doing this as fans, and we were meeting other fans and building friendships. And we were doing that long before there were numbers, and that there were followers and all these things. And yeah, it's always nice to have someone follow you and make a nice comment, but at the core of it, it really should be about fun, about friendship, about building like that community. Because I know for me, like, it's so exciting to see everyone here, but I was so stoked to see like all these ladies I haven't seen in so long and catch up, and it has just been an absolute blast. And they getting to meet new people and have wonderful conversations and just be nerdy again in a public way has been so great that I don't care if I sell any prints. I don't care if you follow me or not. I just want to make some really great memories, and I think that's what we really, you know, share our craft, share our experiences, and just have fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you're cosplaying for clout, you're doing it, like, it's just not, it's a benefit, but like, I think it stems from too, we always go back to this. I remember when having a Facebook fan page, you were selling out in cosplay.
Selling prints was
Selling prints,
prints,
selling out, yeah. So it's like, I started this for myself, and I'm gonna continue to do this for myself, and if anybody wants to come along for the ride, that's awesome. If I help one person slow down for a squirrel, then really, I mean, I've succeeded in my cosplay career. But it's like, you know, I like that and also, it's just really interesting, because way back when, cosplayers, not that we didn't have personalities, but we were afraid to be ourselves and be less than perfect.
Yes.
And that has really changed since like 2008. And going forward, it was like you are invested in the individual more than the costume.
Yeah, I want to tack on to that a little bit, because I got into cosplay like everybody else, just about everyone else. This is fun, this is neat. And I was so blown away about how much about myself I learned through cosplay, because of my own journey. It was a safe place for me to be myself and to express authenticity in a way that was acceptable and encouraged and would let me to explore that. So that's, when we talk about followings and stuff, that's really, I've shifted a lot of my following lately. I want people to come to my page and be a part of my community, that want to inspire and that want to inspire others to be great, right? We shouldn't be telling people to be successful, be successful, be successful. We should tell people to be great, be great, be great, whatever that means to you.
I think there's something now in just sort of society that you can't just have a hobby for fun. You have to have a hobby to make money.
Yeah.
And I think that it's sort of with the advent of like social media that's kind of come about.
But one of the neat opportunities is that I'm a therapist in my day job, right? But I use cosplay with my clients, with my kids who don't know how to connect with things. Well, let's cosplay that character and tell me what it feels like, right? And so I do a lot of this work. So we can actually incorporate our hobbies into our work without it having to be either or. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity and room for that.
Does anybody have a question? You go again, it's fine.
You added to mention having like a professional job, and I guess I'm always curious because the line between hobby and professional, like this is your career, this is your avenue to make money. Do you guys ever find, like, I don't know if you do things for clients, but like I feel like there's a balance for that with like I do and others do too. And how much are you divided between, you know, like, yeah, like how much do you do for yourself and keep it fun, and how much do you do it to survive, I guess?
I'm a little different because, well, I am considered a freelance. I often work on set, so my average day is 12 hours. I'm sometimes working 70 to 80 hours a week. So I have to make the decision with my free time. Am I going to work on my personal projects, or am I going to, you know, it's like I get caught on like, how am I doing social media? You know, people are expecting me to make a post, you know, and so for me, it's been like I have to say it's okay if I'm posting old photos because those costumes took me 50 hours to make it, you know. But for people like Jacqueline and Chrissy, it's like they are their brand and their brand is their company. Like people find it amusing on set that I do cosplay and very interesting, but it doesn't affect me getting work. It just, my skills are what help me get the work. So I'll let them continue on that path.
So I do a lot of commissions for cosplay and for film and television too. My bread and butter really is a lot of Etsy orders. And trying to, but I also co-own a company where we make adhesive for the film industry, specifically for prosthetics and makeup. Balancing the time between that is kind of different because I don't have a 9-to-5 job, but I remember the times when I had a 9-to-5 job, and when I did have a 9-to-5 job, balancing that with cosplay before I went into the professionalism of cosplay. I mean, it was for me, it was downright difficult, not impossible, but you learn to time manage your own schedule. And I gotta say, time management is the most important thing I would suggest, learning not just in cosplay, but in life in general. But if you can succeed in time management with cosplay, you're already like a step ahead of everybody else. Because let me just say this took me a week to make, and I did not do time management very, very well. I had a whole pandemic to get this done. And I literally waited the last minute.
Yeah,
So,
same, ma'am, same.
yeah, same. Chrissy and I literally live like 1.5 miles away from each other, and we never see each other because we're always working or we're working on costumes. So yeah, time management is most key. You know, balancing out your work life with your cosplay life.
And then you've got your personal life.
And your personal life. What's personal life?
And it's whatever you want your end goal to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I did make a very conscious effort years ago to be like, you know what, if I got a convention and I'm working, even though I could be a full-time cosplayer, that's not what I want long-term. I don't want to be 65 in a thong and 6-inch heels at a convention. That is just not
Somebody
something.
wants that. I'm just telling you.
I know. I am prefacing it to myself. That is not something I want. Hats off to the people who do it, but it's not something I want. So I just made the decision that my priority is movies and television, and if I can fit cosplay in, I'm going to do it.
I mean, I think it is a hobby in itself that can be a professional thing as well. For me, that's why I say I'm a hobbyist. Like for me, I didn't pursue cosplay professionally. I have a day job. I have my own business that I'm also trying to launch because I am crazy. And but I think part of cosplay and that quote unquote balance, which we all strive for but don't have, is part of it's just knowing your limitations. So for me, I always work better when I have a deadline. So having an event and going, oh, I want to get this thing done. And sometimes I'll have plans to get three outfits done. And as I'm getting closer to the event, I have to pick 1 or 2 that I really want to do and just really focus on those. And just be realistic with yourself. And if you don't finish it, just be gentle with yourself.
Don't be mean to yourself.
Yeah, there's
It's
always another convention.
And something she said, I heard this saying, like, it's not about balance in your life, it's about harmony.
Yep.
Yes.
So you're never going to find a balance, but you'll always just do your best to find a harmony.
I love that.
If I can chip in, I did commissions for Harley Quinn suits for about 2 years, and in that time period, I did very poor time management.
Yeah.
I had no time to work on my own costumes, and it kind of drove me a little nuts, and it kind of put me in a mood where I didn't want to do cosplay anymore for myself, because I was so focused on everyone else's work, and like, I don't want to do more of this for myself, it's a nightmare. So I had to stop doing the commissions to be able to get back into feeling okay with cosplay. So sometimes it's just not going to work out that way, where you can do the theater work and the commission work and your cosplay work, because it's too much on you, and that's fine too.
Your health really is like the number one.
Yeah,
Also
listen
to
to your
remember
body.
Because
and
we
your
did.
mind.
Yeah, the older you get, it's just your body keeps reminding you.
Yeah, and it gets louder and louder and louder.
They're
And
like,
you're
you
not
need to slow
Burnout
down.
is real too.
And it's okay to be burned out, by the way.
And you're not failing for not being able to do it all either.
Yeah.
Like it's a creative outlet, and it's one that requires a lot of time and energy. And if you're putting that same kind of creative time and energy into a day job or into doing commissions, then yeah, when you need to decompress, the last thing you want to do is continue doing the exact same thing
Yeah.
you're doing for your job.
More red, black fabric, all right.
So yeah, so
Yeah, it was definitely the decompressing and learning to just step back and listen to myself. So if you ever get into a pit with burnout because you're trying to do so much and prove so much to yourself and to other people, it's okay to take a step back from it. Be like, I can let go of this.
Yeah, I always joke with people, I use the teapot reference, right? Who refills the teapot? When the teapot is constantly filling everything else up. So you have to mind your own teapot and fill up what you can fill up while still keeping yourself.
What happens like when you pour your cup of tea and you just kind of move it around your house all day long? It's cold and you never really heat it up. You might probably stick it in the microwave 6 more times and you never really finish the cup.
Bad tea.
It's my problem.
What's a tool that you never thought you would use or never even knew about when you started using it for cosplay?
Caulking gun.
Yeah.
Honestly, caulking with my Witchblade. I've been using SiliCon, but only from like a little tube, not from like the caulking gun, like the big ones. Just for filling seams in armor, little things like that, and even like sculpting little things like on a costume. But when I started doing my Witchblade, I used a toothpick, and I took a plastic fork and took off a couple of the prongs and used that to sculpt the caulking all over my body form, and didn't think I was going to do that, but that's how I did it in like a couple days. And using a caulking gun, to me that's what painters or construction people use. And here I am using it to build a costume. Because before, when you're filling seams, like for an foam armor or whatever, you don't need an entire tube. You just need like the little hand ones, typically. So for me, that was I would say caulking gun.
I would say my airbrush, and because mostly I've gone through 5 different I have like 10 airbrushes at home, let's be real, and I've had different brands. But I went from using my airbrush for body paints and effects to my armor for my detailing, and the clothing for my Loki leather jacket that I have back at the booth. But wigs, I use my airbrush on wigs too. I use it for everything, like everything. It's just like number one go-to tool.
Okay, well.
Yeah, good question.
This is sort of brought up, but I'm sort of curious. For those of you who have professions that aren't necessarily theatrical or costume related, but maybe involve children or academia or you have people who care about your personal life and your job, they want to. How do you either disclose that you use cosplay, or they see a picture of you? How do you explain that? I don't know if explain is the right word, but how do you address that?
I feel like that's a Cammy thing.
Okay, so I embrace it. I would say in therapy we have a term we call roll with resistance, right? And so instead of trying to hide it or keep it separate, because for a while I did, right? And I was like, no, I gotta keep everything in order. But it wasn't actually until I embraced everything I'm talking about, this cosplay in the sessions with the clients, as well as really pushing that authenticity and being proud of art and whatever we do, right? I'm not out here taking pictures that are inappropriate for families and kids. I'm not going to do that, right? But embracing it actually, again, inspires other people to follow maybe their passions. Because wow, she's doing this, and it can exist together, right? It's just a matter of how you choose to. You say disclose, right? It's all about confidence for me. The more confidence you have in what you do and excitement and acceptance of that, the more likely you'll get a better response. Yeah.
And I think something that has helped me out with cosplay is I get whenever I complete a project, I just feel very proud of myself. And it gives you a confidence that is sometimes, I think, hard to achieve outside of like building something. So, you know, a lot of times people are like that aren't nerds or geeks. They're like, I don't get why you dress up and you do this. You're like, I make things, or this actually helps me find a level of confidence I didn't know I had. And if you can kind of share with them your emotional experience beyond just like, oh yeah, it's fun, like, and it is fun and it should be. But I think that when people realize there's more of a depth to it too, it's just not something they considered. So just be open to like sharing and educating them a little bit, that it's more than just this thing they don't understand. It's actually a really creative, it's a welcoming group of people, it's a community, it's, you really can get a lot out of it.
The only thing that I found that I've struggled with, I have worked with a designer where the supervisor said, don't tell her you're a cosplayer, because she will fire you. Because cosplay has a poor stigma, and some of it is due to some of the direction cosplayers have gone with no fault of their own, it's just they've chosen to do that way. And so unfortunately it's attached itself to a lot of all cosplayers. But generally, I just don't bring it up. Someone's like, oh, I found your like Instagram. Aren't you famous? I'm like, yeah, it's just not something I do. It's really helped me develop my skills. Like, don't be ashamed of it. It's not like, hey, my name's Ricky, I'm a cosplayer. Like, I don't like
Neon
lead
sign.
with that. But I eventually accept it, and I kind of just do it that way. And like you said, you just talk about how fun it is, or for me, it's like, oh, this is how, and most people actually find it very cool, or they're like, oh, I've always wanted to get into it, like, how, what, is there a con nearby? Like, most people are, nowadays, like, very open to it. When I first started, I remember someone being like, is that a sexual thing? And I'm like, no, I'm dressing up as a character, like,
And one thing
take
too,
your foot off the pedal.
when you're delivering a message, and ISNN said it, people will forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. So when you're telling somebody about it, you convey that excitement, that confidence, that this is something I love and it's something really passionate. More times than not, they'll be like, well, tell me a little more. What is that?
I feel like it's gotten a lot more.
How long ago was that designer interaction? Was it a while ago? Or
Probably like 5 years ago, 4 years ago. I was working on a Ron Howard film. It was Ron Howard
still kind of
designer.
recent then?
Yeah, it was pretty recent. But I mean, most people, I just worked with Bart Kirk. They did some of the Hunger Games. They did Ghost in the Shell, and they were very cool about it. I've worked, most supervisors are very cool about it. Like, I find other makers in the shop are generally very cool about it. But I did have like one catering woman's like, I know what you do. And I was like, why are you making it weird? I'm like, you're making it weird. I am not making it weird. And I was like, what? What do I do? And she's like, dress up. And I'm like, well, I mean, it's called cosplay, but don't be weird about it.
I feel like it's gotten a lot more acceptable, and it's part of our normal culture in life now. I mean, I never had to really deal with that. And not that I go up and shake my hand and be like, I'm a cosplayer.
Yeah.
But I knew a principal. She was a principal of the school, and she's a really big Wonder Woman cosplayer. And she had to keep it very separate because of like all the students and the faculty. And a student once found her Instagram, and it kind of like changed things a little bit. So she was very weird about it. And then she realized that she loved cosplaying so much, she kind of stepped down from being a principal. And I mean, she does tabletop gaming and stuff now. Like, she's kind of embraced a little bit more of like hobby fun fandom stuff, and she's just I'm a cosplayer, and that's what that is. But I know it's been a lot different over the last like 5 or 10 years.
Sorry, I have to take off super quick. I gotta get my book signed by Andy Weir.
Girl, go get that book.
It was amazing talking to you guys.
Priorities.
Thank you guys. Thank you. I love you.
I'm gonna sit closer to Harley Quinn because I like Harley Quinn.
And I was just going to add, cosplay has become kind of a more mainstream thing as well. So it's not like back 10 years ago when you said cosplay